To once again return to a more concrete question, what we are concerned with in this module as a starting point is what do we want our students to learn? What do we want our students to learn at the level of the whole program that they are part of? This might be a bachelor's degree or a postgraduate degree or even a doctoral level program. What do we want them to learn? Not only with regards to the knowledge of their discipline, but also with regards to the kind of reading and the kind of writing that is required of them as professionals and as academics in this discipline. The question of what brings us to understanding and defining two main aspects. One of them is the point where we started, which is what kind of writing is usually necessary. That question is asking what are the genres that students should be familiar with. Should they know about manifestos? Should they know about design intents? Should they know about writing opinion pieces because it is important for them to communicate as professionals? Should they know about the kind of research that is published in peer-reviewed journals? These are large categories. They are genres, they are types of writing that cannot be learned just by, saying suddenly you need to know how to write this. Each one of these genres, which for us forms what we call an output, which is the object, the product that each one of the students is going to make, each one of them is composed of multiple types of knowledge and skills that the students need to have before they're able to produce that object. Which is why for us as instructors in reading and writing, the question very often is a much smaller one. If ultimately we want our students to be able to write an academic paper, what are the things that they need to know, that is the knowledge? What are the things that they need to know how to do, that is the skills that they need to have, the way in which the knowledge is to be implemented in their own writing or in their own reading practice. As teachers, the most important thing is to realize that an introductory lecture that tells them this is what a manifesto is, or this is what a concept note is, or this is what an opinion piece is not enough to make it happen. What we need to do is to be very clear on the minute skills that go into the making of a good opinion piece. And we need to articulate those, we need to explain them, and we need to then design a process by which the students are able to practice them one by one. We are able to identify whether they are able to perform in each one of those skills, whether they're able to bring that knowledge to bear in their own practice, in their own implementation. That is what we refer to as the learning outcomes that we want to see. And it is perfectly possible that we may not get a perfect opinion piece, but if we are clear that part of the writing of an opinion piece is, for instance, articulating a standpoint, then perhaps our aim for a class, or sometimes even for a course, is to develop in the students the ability to articulate without fear, with a great deal of clarity, their own standpoint. That smaller level skill, which seems easy, is in fact part of higher order learning, higher order knowledge that needs to be implemented, that needs to be applied. And as tutors, when we define what we want our students to do, we need to be able to define how they need to get there, through what process, and we need to ourselves have that knowledge with a great deal of clarity coming from our own experience so that we can impart it and so that we can guide it. By the end of the first module of the course, we have reflected and tried to understand very clearly what it is that our students need to know and what it is that they need to know how to do. This is a question that needs to be answered specifically for each program, for each level. It is not a question that can be prescribed. And as professional life evolves, as the needs evolve with social media, with means of communication which are constantly changing, it is important to keep revisiting this question once in a while alone as well as with our peers, with the industry, taking stock of what is happening outside. Now that we have decided, at least for the moment, what we think is important, we need to be able to take the next steps. The next steps for us will mean, what do I as a tutor need to know and know really well as content? What do I need to have experience with so that I am able to impart this to my students? That's point number one. Point number two is to understand, if I want to teach my students certain kinds of writing, certain kinds of reading, because I believe now that they are important, what are the ways in which people learn how to write and people learn how to read? Point three is even more important for us. If we have to start somewhere, are there basics that cut across genres, that cut across types of output in writing or types of reading that we should have as foundational, us people who teach reading and writing? Are there things, for instance, about how a paragraph is structured? Are there things about how a longer text can be conceptualized which apply irrespective of the kind of writing or reading we're asking our students to do? If there are such things, and there are, we know this, then it makes sense for us to begin by covering all of these, to cover our ground, to cover our bases. This is the kind of knowledge that we will call genre agnostic knowledge, which means that it does not apply particularly to a specific kind of writing, but it cuts across all of them. We will need to help our students with each of these in all the types of writing that they have to do, and that's going to be one of our areas of focus. And finally, when we bring these aspects together, which is the aspect of what we want the students to know how to do, how people learn to do that, and the knowledge that we as instructors need to have, when we bring them together, what we want to create, in fact, is a learning situation. We want to strategize, to plot, in order to be able to visualize each classroom interaction, to visualize each interaction outside of the classroom, formal or informal, to visualize the path that we can take in order to achieve the output we planned to achieve through the knowledge that we will then have about how people learn and how this learning can be guided. So this is the end of the first module. It is a module that we will invite you to revisit again and again as we move through the next ones. And the next step for us now is to figure out what knowledge, which is genre agnostic, we need to have, and to figure out how people learn how to read and write based on others' experience.